Okay.
Got it.
So we're going to talk today a little bit about uh, when we just got done with the series about um, the lamp, the parable of the lamp, and what that requires, and what that means, and how your lamp is lit, and how all of these things kind of take place, and what's the end goal, and the idea that the lamp will illuminate your body, and you will be a light, okay, to the cosmos, and you'll show the way of salvation by word and deed. That's that's the that's the idea. It's and of course this idea of being of showing the way of salvation by word and deed, it makes you a priest. That is your calling. That is your ultimate calling. Is he is going to he is creating a kingdom of priests. And we all of those who follow Christ are destined to be priests, meaning that you're righteous in word and deed, knowing uh, the truth, knowing the will of God, how to apply it, and having had applied it in your life. And what it basically means is you become Christ-like. So you have to understand Christ. You have to understand his person, his thoughts, his mindset, things that he's passionate about. And you have to absorb them into your life and adopt his values as yours. So that it's no longer you who live, but it's Christ who lives in you.
Mm.
All of those things, they all work together. Um, and there's a lot more that has the same theme: the eating of his flesh, the drinking of his blood. The new covenant is in his blood, because that is the way of salvation. So it's a very it it's a very narrow road, because there it seems to vary quite a bit as far as the deceptions and how we are deceived and taken out off the narrow road, seduced off the narrow road. The stumbling blocks that we will encounter are different depending upon what age you're in. In the first century, the big stumbling block was the fact that Christ died, the fact that Christ was humiliated, suffered political defeat, and physically was abused and beaten and then died. That did not look like the Messiah that they were looking for.
Mm.
So that was the big stumbling block in Paul's day. And if you read the scripture with that understanding, you're going to understand a lot of the things that Paul says and be able to relate it to that stumbling block that he had, that people had to see past. That's not an easy thing to see past, especially as a Jew. Very difficult to see past that stumbling block. Very difficult when you've been trained all your life to expect a winning Messiah, a political champion. And then to say, no, no, that Messiah was Jesus, who got slaughtered and crucified, a humiliating death. Yeah, he was our Messiah. You're going, are you out of your mind? You understand the difficulty in accepting that. Very difficult, and very difficult for people to see it. Now, in this day, the stumbling block is different. It's a different twist. Everyone agrees that Jesus is the Son of God. They will say that, oh, yeah, Jesus is the Son of God, no problem. Jesus was the Messiah, no problem. Okay. But what they don't, what the big stumbling block comes in the idea that everything is by grace and you are saved by grace. And this is the mantra. This is the statement. And they don't understand what that phrase actually means. And they don't know what it means to be a disciple of Christ, because the idea of being a disciple has been lost over the generations. In Jesus' day, people had a much better idea of what it meant to be a disciple. The idea of leaving everything to follow your master was not unprecedented, was understood, was actually done quite a bit in that day. That was not unusual. So the idea of what it meant to be a disciple was not a stumbling block. They understood what that meant. It's just they had their own problems that they had to go through. In our generation, what it means to be a disciple is a huge stumbling block. It's very difficult to get your head around because we don't have any precedent in our religion about what it means to be a disciple. Now, in other religions, we know what it looks like. We know what the monks look like, the Buddhist monk. We know the Hindu monks. We know the Catholic priests, okay, which you could say might be a Christian type of thing. But they're taken care of, though. They're really, what are they disciples of? Are they disciples of Christ, or are they disciples of the church? The pastors, what do they really, who do they serve? Do they serve Christ, or do they serve the church? So the Orthodox Jews, we have certain examples that you could point out, and there's many more, where people leave everything and follow a certain religious or spiritual pursuit. And we know, we've seen it, we've done that before. I mean, we kind of have those kind of roles. But even evangelicalism, the evangelicals and all of that teaching, they don't teach that. That's a Catholic thing. That's the Catholics do that, okay? And they do it their own way. We have a different way in the evangelical mindset. It's more of you have to be called to be a full-time minister, right? I mean, that's how we think. Yeah, and then, of course, when you're called to be a full-time minister, that means you're supported by the general, peoples that come along and sit in the pews, and they give their money to this organization, and the organization will pick and choose who they support, who deserves, I guess, to be a full-time minister. So, and we've all run across that. I used to talk to people at Campus Crusade all the time, and they would have their support month, and they would have to go and raise support. They would go home. They had their little pictures. They had their presentation ready because they had to raise support and pledges for the year. And if they didn't, suddenly they were no longer called to be full-time ministers. Suddenly their calling ended abruptly because they couldn't raise the money. So they had to raise that money. And I remember the tension. I was with them when they were preparing for that, and what they would, how they talk about it. But usually they had certain churches that would pledge, and then they had certain individuals that would pledge little amounts, and it would add up to be sufficient. But anyway, that's how we've been raised. That's what we know. So now I want to talk about what Christ says, what the words of Christ are. Okay. And I want to begin with Matthew 10, 37 to 39. Let me share the screen. Oh yeah, that's okay. Matthew 10, 37 to 39, we've seen this before, but I want to go over it again and highlight a couple things. He says, he who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. You see the language he uses that we don't really emphasize, but it's not anybody that can be a disciple of Christ. It's not like you come as you are. You need to adjust and have a mindset where you are acceptable to Christ as a disciple. And those that are not acceptable are not received. So those that love their father and mother more than Christ is not worthy of me. Who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. So he presumes that you are going to take up your cross. And we've talked about what that means. First of all, if you're going to take up your cross and follow him, it means you're leaving something behind. If you're following him, you're leaving behind your blood family, your job, your life, basically. You're leaving all of those things behind, and you're taking up your cross of humiliation and a labor, and it's something that you're going to be mocked and ridiculed, and all of those things are going to come at you like they do for every truth teller. They'll always get flack all the time. So you can expect that, and you have to be willing to take up your cross, go through the suffering, share the sufferings of Christ, and you follow after him. You don't suffer for nothing. You don't suffer for an unworthy cause. You don't, there's a lot of people that give up a lot of things and sacrifice a lot of things for empty causes, and they get nothing out of it. It's kind of an empty suffering. You're suffering for nothing. You don't want to do that. You suffer for one thing. You suffer for him. You follow after him. If you're not following after him, don't bother with the sacrifices. It's not worth it. You're sacrificing stuff for nothing. And that's pointless. You have to sacrifice in a way that produces what Paul would call the eternal weight of glory. But this is why he says you have to take up the cross and follow after me. But if you're not willing to do that, you're not worthy of me. Okay. And then he says, he who has found his life will lose it. And he who has lost his life for my sake. Now, and you have to be very careful for what cause you're throwing away your life. Okay. Because you can hang on to your life for as long as you can otherwise, but throwing away your life for nothing, for a wrong cause, now you're like a double loser. You lost your life, and you lost any value that you might have received if you had lost your life for the right thing. So you have to do two things. You have to lose your life, and you have to lose your life for his sake. And you have to understand what that means. But if you do lose your life for my sake, you will find it. That's why it's a narrow road. First of all, you have to lose your life. That's number one. And that sacrifice has to be made. If you don't believe that's true, you don't believe in Jesus. You don't believe he's telling you the truth, because he's saying you must lose your life to find it. And you must lose your life for my sake to find it. So you will have to make a sacrifice of your life. You have to put aside your ambitions. You have to put aside all of your ideas and plans that you might have for your life and what you want to do and how you want to please others with your actions and with how you spend your time and the activities that you engage in. If you're doing that to please others, that is doing something on your own initiative. And if you're doing something on your own initiative, you're not following Christ, who never did anything on his own initiative, because that's what he tells us. I do nothing on my own initiative, he says. So you're not following Christ if you do things on your own initiative. This is what it means to lose your life. Okay. It's a real thing. And like I said, people do it all the time. It's not unprecedented. They just do it for the wrong reasons. Okay. And the idea is to do it for the right reasons. Okay, I paused it. Dan, can you let Charlie out now? He broke down my door.
Okay.
All right.
That begs a lot of questions I won't ask, but
No, I know it
it's
does.
a bold statement, but it begs a lot of,
Yep.
It's
There's a
going to make
lot
some
of
ripples and
lot of
ripples in the water.
questions. No, it's
Yeah.
And you know what? It's okay to ask.
Yeah.
No, it's fair.
Yeah.
These are fair questions because they are going to beg questions. These things I'm saying, they're kind of a major deal. What questions do you have? I mean, we can ask them on the recording.
What's that?
We can ask them on the recording
Okay.
because people should hear the questions.
Yeah.
But I mean, just so everyone understands what I'm saying, at least, right?
Yeah.
So far.
Right.
I'm just waiting for Diane to come back.
All right.
I don't know, maybe. Oh, you know what? Oh, shoot. What did I pause? I can't.
We're still recording.
Are we still recording?
It didn't say it stopped.
I know I paused something, but I guess maybe I just paused the share. Well, what's your question? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, obviously, we talked about balance. There is no balance. But I guess the question would be scripturally, what does that look like in like real time, real life? Because I'm trying to walk around during my day going, am I pleasing the Father? Really? But to be a servant, a slave to the master, it's pretty extreme. And it's so foreign, but like you said, other people do it for other reasons. And, and there's people with diet or exercise or that, are just 100% of their life is focused. But just, I mean, this is not taught by the church system.
No.
I mean, they're not telling anybody to do this.
No, they're not.
It's in scripture. It's very clear. Yeah, I guess it's a lot of self-examination and a lot of searching scripture as to what this life, or this non-life looks like.
No, it does, and we're going to go through it. By the way, we didn't pause recording, so I don't care. I don't care. All
It's real time.
It's all real time.
Yeah, this is not staged,
and that's fine.
This is not a test.
This is not. Yeah.
This is
no, and that's right. It will. We're going to go through what our calling is.
Yeah.
And what it will look like. What it will look like.
Would you say it's being able to see past stumbling blocks?
No,
that's what's all in front of us now.
Of course. Yeah, of course. That's part of it. But to see past the stumbling blocks, you kind of have to see the big picture. You have to see why it makes sense, why this isn't really crazy talk.
Yeah.
And this isn't something that, like, what, how can you, say something like that? Doesn't make any sense, because we have no idea. We have no precedent in our lives, no examples, no role models of people actually losing their life for the sake of Christ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that get on the dole and become full-time, paid, salaried, ministers and whatnot.
Yeah.
But they're not really serving Christ. They're serving a constituent. They're trying to walk a fine line. They're trying to tell the truth in a way that's not going to offend, and it's not going to drive people away. Because if they did drive people away, they'd lose their job.
Yeah.
So that's always a struggle that they have. And you can tell they're always struggling with that. They're always struggling and they want to tell the truth, but then, and they're not even sure what the truth is, obviously. They don't even really know the true gospel.
Right.
But this idea of losing your life for his sake, I mean, for instance, why would he go through the trouble of telling you in Matthew 6:33 to seek the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you? The reason why he's telling you, don't worry, all these things will be added to you, which means your food, your clothing, and your shelter, and those things. The reason why he's promising that he's trying to, calm you down, in essence, he's basically saying, I know you're going to lose your life to do this. And you might be afraid you're going to lose your livelihood. And you might be afraid you're not going to pay your bills. And you're going to lose, you're not going to be able to feed yourself and feed your family and feed. See, he's telling you, I get it. You're going to worry about that. And this is why I'm telling you that if you actually do seek the kingdom first and his righteousness, I'm not going to let that happen to you. Well, the Father's not going to let that happen to you, because look at the sparrows, look at the lilies. Are they okay? Yeah, they're okay. Okay. And they don't have jobs. So he anticipates the concern. The problem is nobody takes him up on it. Well, no one, and the whole idea of what that command means has been buried. Right?
Right.
So, but we're going to get into a lot of those questions, which are valid questions. You have to get them out there. You have to think it through, and you have to think it through very carefully, because the idea is you have to lose your life for his sake. You have to know what that looks like. Okay. But what I'm telling you is, if you don't do it, you'll never find it. See, as much as we all want to know what that looks like, what that means, the issue I'm highlighting here is, you better find out what it means, and you better figure it out, because if you don't do it, you're not going to find life. That's what I'm pointing out. It's not status quo when you become a disciple of Christ. You're not worthy to be a disciple of Christ if you don't figure this out and then do it. Now, there's a lot of things that we're going to go through. Like I said, we're going to do it little pieces. So you have to be patient, because there's a lot of questions that are good questions, valid questions. They have to be asked and they have to be answered. But you can't just sit on it and say, I don't know, and then just go about preserving your own life. And you're, see, when he says he who has found his life will lose it, what does it mean to find your life? What does that mean?
carve out a niche or make your,
What does it presume?
be satisfied with
No, he who has found his life. What does that presume?
that you were
That
you were searching for your own
yes,
life.
that you were
You're
seeking.
seeking.
You were seeking
You're
your life,
seeking your own.
seeking your own life.
Yeah.
Exactly, which we have all done.
Mm.
We've all
Yeah.
sought a life for ourselves, and we have all found it. Pretty much, we found a life for ourselves. But what he's saying here is, yeah, okay, you sought your own life, you found it, but let me tell you something: you're going to lose it.
Mm.
Everyone's going to lose their life. And that's obvious. I mean, it's like, it's something that's obvious. Of course, we're all going to lose our lives. Of course, everything we built is going to go to zero. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Your stock is going to go to zero. And that is true. But he kind of saying, you're going to lose it anyway. It's just a matter of when. You're going to lose your life. You sought out your life. Many of you have found it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to lose it. And everyone agrees. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm going to lose it. None of us are going to keep our lives forever. We're going to lose it. And he says, so I just want to make that clear. You're going to lose it. You were seeking your life, seeking a life for yourself. You found it, and now you're going to lose it. Now it's just a matter of when. When do you want to lose it? How do you want to lose it? So the next sentence, and he who has lost his life for my sake will find it. So now
he's saying, why don't you just lose it now?
Lose it now and lose it for the right reason.
Lose it anyways.
And lose it for the right reason.
Yeah.
Lose it for the right reason. Lose it now and lose it for the right reason. Then you will find it forever. It's a very compelling argument.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just logical.
Yeah.
Be proactive. Lose your life now. Lose it for me, for my sake, and you'll find it. So it's a very compelling argument, and it actually appeals to even like the hardcore investor. But let me tell you something. This only works. This argument is only appealing to those who believe him.
Yeah.
If you don't believe that that this is true, that he's telling you the truth, you don't believe in Jesus, then you don't care. It's just noise. But if you do believe in Jesus, you can't argue with that logic. You can't. Yeah, it actually makes sense. Okay, I guess if I'm going to lose it anyway, if I lose it for your sake, I will find it. Why not lose it now while it's still mine to lose? See, right now you have a life that you can actually lose yourself. If it's ripped away from you, you can't lose it anymore. I mean, it's already gone. So you can't lose it for his sake anymore if it's ripped away. But if you give it away for his sake, then you get the best return for your life on earth, which isn't worth much, which is going to zero. It's like trading in a stock that is going to zero for another stock that will go up forever.
So Jesus is saying, sell now.
Sell now. Sell and now. Buy this stock, sell that stock and buy this stock. And you got to do it now.
Yeah.
While you still own the stock.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying? That's his argument there. And you can't really argue against it. It makes a lot of sense because you know your stock is going to zero. It's just a matter of time. So why not sell it now, trade it in for a stock that will never go to zero and that continues to increase value forever. Any investor would take that trade in a heartbeat. Okay. So that's what he's saying. Now, that only works for you. That's only compelling to you if you believe him. Do you really believe Jesus is telling you the truth? If you do believe it, you can't argue against it. So, but those, and this is why if you don't do it, you're unworthy of him. Because the only people that would not do it are people that don't believe him. Who wouldn't do that, make that trade? The only people that would not make that trade are those that really don't believe in Jesus. They don't believe that he's telling the truth. So obviously you would not be worthy of him. And they're gonna say all kinds of things. They're gonna twist and turn and do the pretzel and justify and rationalize their way around it. Like that even matters. You can do that all you want. That's fine. Doesn't change what he's saying. And everyone will take the red pill. It's just a matter of when. But so that's, you know, that's just an important statement of Christ that everyone should, you know, that cares should take note, because it's right there. You can look it up and, you know, verify it yourself. Luke 14, 26 to 27. Now large crowds were going along with him, and he turned and said to them, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, and yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. So he reiterates to this large crowd what he kind of said up here. And it's kind of the same understanding. It's the same understanding that all these things you're giving up is temporal. You're going to give them up anyway. You're going to lose them anyway. It's just a matter of time. And so all he's saying is, you should voluntarily lose these things for my sake. If you do that, then you're worthy to be my disciple. But only if you do that. Otherwise, you're not worthy, and you cannot be my disciple. Then in Matthew 16.
So if you call yourself a disciple, you're calling yourself worthy?
Yeah.
Are those synonymous?
Absolutely.
Say, I'm a disciple of Christ. Oh,
if
really?
you say you're a disciple of Christ, then you're calling yourself someone worthy enough to be a disciple of Christ. Someone that's able
you're
to
meeting the standards of what
you
Jesus
met those
said,
standards.
disciple of Christ.
Otherwise,
Wow.
you're lying.
Yeah. Or you're deceived.
You're just lying to yourself.
Well, you can get people to tell you that you're okay.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
So you can, yeah.
You know, it's a narrow road.
Yeah.
And, you know, many are called, few are chosen. If in Matthew 16, okay, he says it again. He says this, he says it to his disciples. If anyone wishes to come after me, if you actually wish to come after me, this is just coming after him, right? This is just deciding, oh, okay, I want to be with Jesus. I want I want to be his friend. Okay. A friend that obeys him. If you wish to come after me, you have to deny yourself. That means forget about all your plans about your life here on earth. Forget all that. Forget, you know, the things that your bucket list and your educational goals and your careers and your monetary goals and your retirement plans. Forget all that. All that's gone. And you have to take up your cross. You have to be humiliated. You have to be willing to take the mockery and the accusations and all the slings and arrows. They're going to come at you, which they are. They came after Christ. They're going to come after you if you do this. But it's only for one lifetime. So you have that. Then you're done. But you're going to take it. You're going to take up your cross and you're going to follow him.
Well, one of the questions would be, what is the term cross? What does that mean? I mean, you talk about humiliation, but there's probably a lot more to it. Because it's one of those Christianese things. Hey, take up your cross
No.
daily.
This is a reference to the crucifixion. When people they know what this means. When you pick up your cross to go get crucified, you have to
And
take
you
up
know
your
it's
own
at the
cross.
end of the road.
Yeah,
If you're carrying your cross,
and they're going to mock you the entire way.
what you're in
Spit
for.
on you, call you names, call you a murderer, call you whatever they want, you dirty dog. It's the worst way. It's the most shameful, humiliating way to die.
So there's no light cross. There's no
No,
it's
no. It just means that first of all, it's a burden, and it's heavy, and you're going to get mocked and spit on all the way up to the hill, to the hill where you're going to be crucified.
yeah.
I mean, everyone is well aware of what that means in that culture. They knew what that meant.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
So
the idea that he was going to, follow him because that's exactly what he's going to do. I'm not sure if they really understood that yet.
Yeah.
But, so yeah, and this, by the way, this is confirmed by Paul. We're going to get into those passages where Paul basically says, this is what's happening to me. This is what's happening to us. We're participating in the death of Christ, in the dying of Christ, so that we can participate in his life. He says it very, it's very eloquent when you understand what he's saying.
Right.
So, but yeah, you have to deny yourself. You take up your cross and follow him. For whoever wishes to save his life, if you're trying to hang on to your life, you're going to lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake, and I wanted to point out in Mark 8:35, it says, for my sake and the gospel's sake.
Oh, what was that? Mark what?
Mark 8:35. It's the same language, except he adds that in his account. For my sake and the gospel's sake. In Mark, it says, for my sake and the gospel's sake, we'll save it. If you lose your life for my sake and the gospel's sake, you'll save it. In Matthew, it says, whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. And then, to add to the logic, to kind of emphasize it, he says, for what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? So, what does it gain? Nothing. I mean, you're not going to profit at all. And he's stating the obvious, but it's one of those things where it's an airtight argument if you believe him. If you don't believe him, you ignore it. But if you do believe him, you kind of take it to heart. Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? Now, this sometimes looks like you have a soul and you're giving it away, and what will you give? And what is it? It gets confusing. But what it means is the exchange, this word, the Greek, it means to, it means to purchase your soul. What will you give to purchase your soul, or to redeem your soul, or to acquire your soul? And so it can be misconstrued, because obviously you can never redeem your soul on your own. But what he's saying is, you're going to need me to redeem your soul, and I'm requiring your life to be my disciple. You're going to need to be my disciple for your soul to be redeemed. And I'm requiring, okay, you're not worthy of me if you're not willing to deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. So that's the price. And are you willing to pay it? Is that something that you're willing to do in exchange for your soul, to secure your soul? That's what that argument is basically saying. So you're not going to profit anything to gain the whole world when you forfeit your soul. But on the other hand, what are you willing to give to redeem your soul? That's the question. So I made a reference to Psalm 49 here, and this, it's just kind of interesting. The folly of trusting in riches. I just wanted to it says, do not be afraid when a man becomes rich, when the glory of his house is increased, for when he dies, he will carry nothing away. His glory will not descend after him. Notice the word descend. Like, we all know where he's going. And by the way, he's going to go there broke, is what he's saying. So though while he lives, he congratulates himself. And you see that everywhere. He did really well for himself. He set himself up. He's got a great situation. He made some good, smart moves. Very wise, very, very prudent. He congratulates himself. And though men praise you when you do well for yourself, he shall go to the generation of his fathers. They will never see the light. Usually it's a generational thing. I mean, we come from a generational ideas about take care of this life. Be wise with your money. Be wise with your investments. Make sure that you're going to set yourself up for a good retirement. Make sure.
The American dream.
Yeah, it's the American dream.
Yeah.
And that's a generational idea that's been kind of pounded in our heads without really any spiritual considerations, because it's never taught. It hasn't been taught for generations. And he's going to follow his fathers, and they will never see the light. Man in his pomp, yet without understanding, is like the beasts that perish. You're just like a beast. If you've noticed, I mean, I walk my dog all the time, and every time he sees a cat or another dog, he gets triggered and he goes nuts, and that's all he can see. And he wants to go get them, and has a big fit, tunnel vision. He would cross any street to go after a dog or a cat, and not even looking for the cars, not looking for anything. That's kind of what man is when you focus on the here and now. You're like a beast. You get tunnel vision. All you can see is what's around you. You can't see past it. And this is something that Paul says in 2 Corinthians 4, where he says, look, the reason why we're able to do what we do is because we don't focus on what we can see. Because if you focus on what you can see, it's all temporal. But if you focus on the things you can't see, those things are eternal.
Hmm.
See, that's when you kind of elevate above the beast. When you're a little smarter than the animal, and you can see past the temporal and the material and the circumstance that's sitting in front of you for right now. And you meditate on that. And you make your plans based on what you see with respect to eternal matters. And you make decisions based on that. Now you're finally rising above the beast. But I just thought that was interesting. This whole chapter is interesting. Why should I fear in the days of adversity when the iniquity of my foes surround me? Even those who trust in their wealth boast in the abundance of their riches. It's very easy to trust in your wealth because you feel secure. And you feel like you're going to be fine. But you're like an animal when you do that. You're like a beast. That he should live on. They feel they boast in their abundance of riches. I'm going to skip this part. That he should live on eternally, that he should not undergo decay. For he sees that even wise men die, the stupid and the senseless alike perish and leave their wealth to others. Their inner thought is that their houses are forever. See, the fools think that they're what they build is forever. They just presume it. And their dwelling places to all generations. They have called their lands after their own names. Notice a lot of people do that. But man in his pomp will not endure. He is like the beasts that perish. This is the way of those who are foolish, and of those after them who approve their words. This is interesting. As sheep, they are appointed for Sheol. These are the beasts. They act like beasts. They're appointed for Sheol. Death shall be their shepherd. And the upright shall rule over them in the morning, and their form shall be for Sheol to consume, so that they will have no habitation. And then he said, but God will redeem my soul from the power of Sheol, for he will receive me. So if you act as a beast in this life, and you try to save your life, okay, then you'll lose it in the worst way. So this isn't anything new, by the way. I mean, as I just showed you, this was something that was obviously understood by every man of God way back. This has always been a requirement. People think this is a new requirement that Jesus is. No, this isn't new. This is old. This is for any person of God at any age. They all knew this, that you can't trust in your riches. You can't hang on to your life. You have to deny yourself. Okay. This is very specific in this new age, in this new covenant age, where they talk about taking up the cross and following Christ, taking on his passion for the Ekklesia of God, for the kingdom that he brought. That's new. But the idea of selling out your life, of giving up your life for your seeking God and seeking his approval, that's not new. For the Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and will then repay every man according to his deeds. According to what you do, your deeds. You're going to need righteous deeds. You're going to have to be deemed a disciple of Christ to be take advantage of the blood of Christ to wash away your all of your dirty deeds, so that and you'll have to have righteous deeds that you can only produce by abiding in Christ, by being his disciple. That's the only way you can produce righteous deeds, as he tells us in the parable of the vine in John 15. You have to abide in him. You have to be his disciple. To be his disciple, you have to lose your life, and you have to pick up your cross, and you have to follow him. These are his requirements. I'm not making this up. I'm just telling you what he says. I'm just not pulling punches. That's all.
So if you're abiding in the vine, that means you can't be abiding in two vines.
No.
You can't. It's
an all or nothing.
Yeah, it's very singular. Sounds like a narrow road.
Yeah. No, it's an all or nothing deal. And guess who's going to judge you on whether you on whether you made that criteria, on whether you actually followed him and his teachings.
The designer of the criteria.
Yeah. the guy who says all this stuff.
Yeah.
That guy. The Son of Man is going to come in the glory of his fathers and his angels, and then will repay every man according to his deeds.
So he says it, and we believe him or not.
Right. And if you don't believe him, he'll know.
He said, yeah, he explained that.
Yeah, I said it. You didn't believe me? I was pretty clear about it. I was pretty clear. And I gave you every reason to do it. I mean, I appealed to even the beasts. I would appeal to them.
Yeah.
To the the stock investor.
He's giving you a good stock tip.
Yeah, giving you a good stock tip.
Real good one.
And the only reason why you wouldn't take it is because you didn't believe me. That's the only reason why you wouldn't take it. You just didn't believe me. So he's going to judge. It's going to come. It's coming. Everyone's going to be judged according to their deeds. And they're going to have to basically demonstrate that they lost their life, they picked up their cross, and they followed him. Now, how are you going to do that if you don't even know what he's saying? If you haven't even examined the words of Christ? If you don't look at the words of Christ? If you don't look at what he's telling you? How are you going to follow him if you don't study him?
People think that they are.
I know.
We did mighty works in your name.
I know.
All the, Lord people. I thought we were doing everything, but I really didn't investigate.
I didn't do my own research.
What's required.
So that is going to happen. All of those excuses are going to come up, and they're all going to be laid on the table, just like he predicted. Every excuse in the book is going to be given to him. You taught in our streets. We ate lunch with you. You're a friend. We're a big fan. We cheered for you. All of it. Mm-hmm. Did you lose your life? Did you follow me? Did you study me? Did you take on my passions? Did you take on my mindset? Did you take on everything that I thought was important? Did you think was important? Did you feel that they were important? I gave my life to initiate the new covenant. Did you give your life to perpetuate it? To advance it? Did you give your life to the new covenant or no? See, that's what's going to be on the table. And the reason I speak up is because of Mark 8:38. For whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will also be ashamed of him. I don't want him to be ashamed of me. This is a wicked and adulterous and sinful generation. There's no question about it. It is completely lost. They have lost the truth a long time ago for generations. And if I sit there and pull punches and I'm not very clear about what Jesus is saying, despite the fact I'm going to get a lot of blowback, a lot of accusations, then he'll be ashamed of me. And I can't have that. I'm going to do everything I can for that not to happen. When he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels. You don't want that to happen to you. You don't want him to be ashamed of you. You can't be ashamed of him. You can't be ashamed of his words, of his criteria, of his commands. He just doesn't take any Tom, Dick, and Harry that come skipping along and call him, oh, it's okay, you can be my disciple. No, that's not how it works. You have to be found worthy to be his disciple. And it's not a worthiness of how good you are, how good you look, or anything. It's a matter of commitment. How committed are you? That's the key. That's the criteria. How committed are you to following me and knowing me, understanding me? Will you lose your life for me? Are you that committed? Are you a true believer? You could be a dirty dog. That's fine. In that sense, you can come as you are, but you got to be completely committed to knowing me and understanding me. You've got to obviously study me, know my words, know what they mean, understand me, who I am, what I did. You have to understand my passions. Okay? That's what it means to know me. You say that you know me, you say you love me, but you can't even say my commands. You don't even know what I've said, what I taught, what I accomplished. You don't know those things? Then don't tell me you love me. Don't tell me that you know me. You don't. And you basically lived your own life. You made your own decisions. You did everything on your own initiative. You didn't follow the calling that I gave you. You didn't pursue it with your life. I told you I'd take care of you. If you did, don't worry about your stuff. You don't believe me? Those are the questions that are going to be asked. Luke 17, remember Lot's wife. Whoever seeks to keep his life will lose it. So if you're trying to hang on to both, if you're trying to hang on to your life and you're trying to be a disciple of Christ, forget it. It's not going to work. You have to lose it to find it. If you try to keep it, you're going to lose it. Whoever loses his life will preserve it. Now, I'm going to add whoever loses his life for his sake or the gospel's sake, which he said before.
Right.
Will preserve it. He says these things over and over. Luke 8 is an example. I will follow you, Lord, but first permit me to say goodbye to those at home. Now, that seems like a reasonable request. Just wants to say goodbye to his friends.
I think so.
Yeah. What's the big deal? Why is that so bad? And then Jesus says, no one, after putting his hand to the plow, looking back, is fit for the kingdom of God.
Does Lot's wife kind of fit that analogy there?
Yeah.
Putting your hand, I mean,
yeah,
not even looking back.
Yeah. What he's basically saying is if you're still yearning
Yeah.
for your company, because when he says goodbye to his friends, he just wants to have another
good old days.
Good old days party
back
kind
in
of
the
thing,
day,
and have that connection. If you're yearning for those shallow connections, which they are shallow, if you're still yearning for that after you followed me for a while, you're not fit for the kingdom. You're not worthy.
Mm.
You don't have the mindset. You don't have the appetite. You don't hunger and thirst for righteousness. Because if you hunger and thirst for righteousness, you're not going to want to leave. You're not going to want to leave my side, because I'm feeding you, I'm watering you, I'm giving you everything that you need, that you've been looking for a long time.
Mm.
You're not going to want to leave. Not to say goodbye to your silly friends. So this is Jesus talking. Now people say, "Oh, that's very unloving of Jesus to do that." Very unloving. You can call it unloving if you want, but I'm going to stick with Jesus. I'm going to stick with the fact that he knows what love is and we don't. And I'm going to go with his idea of what love looks like.
Yep.
And he's basically giving him a warning that is very loving in my view. Because if he just said, yeah, go ahead, whatever. And knowing that you're basically throwing him to hell, because he's completely unworthy. At least now he has time to reconsider. Well, maybe, maybe doesn't make sense. But anyway, in John 12, Jesus answered them saying, the hour has come for the Son. This is that point where they're saying these people want to talk to you. People want to meet you. And he says, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls into the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. He who loves his life loses it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it to life eternal.
I always thought he was talking about himself, about the grain of wheat.
Yeah, I think, yes, because
he is, but the analogy is the same for those who desire to follow him.
Yes. Okay. No, it's true. Because it is a grain of wheat, it sounds like there's fruit. He's a grain, a fruit of wheat falls into the earth and dies. So he is talking about himself.
Right.
And so he's basically saying, I have this kingdom. Because remember, he said the kingdom is in your midst. I have this kingdom. It's a small kingdom. It's me and the 12 with a little tear in there. Okay, got a little tear that doesn't bleed me. But I have this kingdom, but when I die, I can send the Spirit, and I have lots of kingdoms.
It bears much fruit.
Bear much fruit, but the Spirit can be in many places and be a paraclete in many kingdoms. I'm just one paraclete. I'm time and space. I'm material. I'm in the flesh. I am the messenger of his presence in the flesh. But if I die, I can send the messenger of his presence in the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of Christ, who now will be under me. I will send the Spirit, so the Spirit will be subjected to me, and he will reveal everything I tell him to reveal to many peoples of God.
So,
wait a minute. Let's have Diane a question. Go ahead, Diane.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
All right.
So you can't bear fruit unless you give up your life.
No, that's true. You cannot bear fruit unless you lose your life. That's true.
Wow.
So he who loves his life loses it. He who hates his life in this world will keep it to life eternal. And because he's kind of like, he's saying this, I'm dying. I gave up my life, and I'm going to show you. There's lots of passages. I won't show you tonight, but I'm going to show you next time all the passages where he basically says, I don't have a life. I gave up my life. I don't do anything on my own initiative.
Right. Yep.
Okay. If you're going to follow me, you got to follow that part of me. That's what I did. And now you need to do it. I'll show that to you next time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of passages that talk about that. Yes, Diane.
So scroll back up again a little bit. And you say that if we die, we bear much fruit?
No. This is what Steve is saying is that this is what Jesus did.
Okay.
He's like the grain of wheat.
But Jesus, not us.
No. What Steve is saying is Jesus did this, and we need to follow him in that. You see, he died to bear much fruit. He was a grain of wheat. He could have gone to heaven. There was nothing stopping him from ascending to heaven. He was righteous. He was sinless. No problem. But if he's going to purchase a bride to go with him, followers and disciples, like people that we want to be disciples, we want to be there. We want to do that. That's our goal. So if he is going to make a way for us to get there, he's going to have to die for us to get there. And for all the saints to get there, he's going to have to die to produce much fruit. Because he had fruit of righteousness already, because he was sinless. Lots of fruits of righteousness, tons of fruit. But he had to sacrifice himself still to bear more fruit. We will follow in his footsteps in that sense. We're going to do the same, except for the fact we don't have fruits of righteousness. I mean, we're different in that regard. But I'm going to show you later how the way he got his fruits from righteousness in the first place was to deny himself. That's how he produced the fruits of righteousness in the first place, is not to do anything of his own initiative, but he only spoke what the Father told him to speak. He didn't follow any personal ambitions. He lost his life. He gave it up. Okay? He humbled himself. And he gave up that. He gave that up so that he could produce fruits of righteousness, because he would do the work of his Father. Okay? And he did it, and we need to do it if we're going to follow him. He showed us what to do, showed us how to do it. If we're going to follow him, we need to do the same. And if we don't do the same, we're not worthy of him. For good reason. Because we don't really believe in him. So he who loves his life loses it. And he who hates his life in this world will keep it to life eternal. If anyone serves me, he must follow me. He must do as I do. And I had no problem giving up my life. I didn't do anything of my own initiative, nothing of my own. I did what the Father told me to do. I spoke what the Father told me to speak. That's how I did it. That's what you need to do too. And if you're going to serve me, you're going to have to follow me just as I did it. Otherwise, you cannot serve me. You cannot be my slave. You cannot be my disciple. You're not worthy. But if you do step up and follow me in that way, if you do give up your life and lose your life for my sake to follow me, if anyone serves me, he must follow me. And then where I am, there my servant will be also. That's a big upside, because we all know where he is. He's at the right hand. He's at the throne. And we will be there too, if we follow him. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him. So we know what it takes to serve him. We know the criteria. We know what it means to be worthy of him, to be worthy of it, to be a disciple of his. This is what it takes. Now we're gonna find out, we're gonna flesh out later in the next, I don't know what we're gonna call these things, episodes or parts or whatever. We're gonna first of all look at Jesus and show you that that's exactly what he did. And then we're gonna look at what do we do? We lose our life to do what? What are we supposed to do? What's our calling? What are we supposed to do exactly with our time? If we're gonna lose our life, we got to do something with it. Yes, you have a hand.
Seek first the kingdom and his righteousness.
Yeah. And so we're going to figure
Big
out,
part.
right. That's the command he gave us. So we got to flesh
Right.
that out and what that looks like in our lives today, right now, as we sit. You know, we're not in an ecclesia. We're supposed to seek it. You're supposed to, obviously, if you're in an ecclesia, you wouldn't seek it. You're only seeking it when you're not in an ecclesia. So the seeking part has to be full-time. The seeking part is a full-time job as a slave of Christ. Okay? Just the seeking part. And then when you find the ecclesia, preserving it and making it the best ecclesia ever is a full-time job also.
It's building up.
Yeah, it's your calendar is full. In other words, you'll have tons of stuff on your plate if you want to be a disciple of Christ. You have so much on your plate. You don't have time to live two lives. You just don't have time to live two lives. That's the idea. So anyway, next time we'll go about, we'll look at what Jesus did, how, the things that he was, what he did, and we'll talk more about how he did it. And then we'll go on to what he told us to do with our lives. What's our calling? How do we invest our lives? And so it'll be a few episodes or parts or scenes or whatever we call this.
You're going to go into more of what it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to set up right now.
Yeah.
What it means to be worthy of him.
Yeah.
What you have to hate. You have to hate your life in this world. It just can't be fulfilling. There's got to be something missing, a void, and it's just not. You just can't have this life. And just
could you say you're loving your life more than Christ's words, or you're putting, I don't know,
what,
you're loving your life above Christ's commands?
Well, the problem is that if you do love your life, there's something wrong, because your life you're on a hamster wheel. And when you look around, all you're doing is gathering trash.
Yeah. But there's the argument of, God's created these beautiful things in nature for us to see and enjoy and, all that.
Yep.
So even those we shouldn't be distracted by.
No, of course not. Those things are going to burn. They're not eternal.
Yeah. But
they're temporal, nice. Like everything else. It's all temporal. It's beautiful, but the reason you should reflect on the beauty of the Creator. If he can create these beautiful things and he's saying, I got something better for you, then you're going, you know what? I'm not going to let these beautiful things distract me. That would be that's like perverting his creation. Now you're using his creation to pervert you, to be distracted from what is eternal. That's not the idea. It's to give you reflection, is to give you some revelation about, guess what? Your Creator created these beautiful things. Okay. So you need to listen to him to be with him forever. And you need to honor him and love him and serve him.
It's sort of like the game show where they open the first curtain and it's a new car. The second curtain, do you want to take this one, or do you take curtain number 2? But God has revealed what curtain number 2 is. And do you believe him? Or are you going to take dirt
Yeah,
number one?
the
Basically.
nature and creation cannot give you life.
Right.
All it can do is point you to life.
Yeah, it should, like David said, it pours forth speech day after day, you know.
It points you to life. It points
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
and that's the purpose of creation, is to point you to the creator. And
Okay.
he is the source of real life, and to feel fulfilled and to feel,
Not
energized
not
and
for that
full.
temporary happiness that we
No,
can,
those are just
you know.
little dopamines. They come
Yeah.
and they go.
Yeah.
The next storm and everything is changed. So yeah,
Okay.
yeah, keep everything in its place. All right, so that's good. We'll the next time, like I said, we'll talk more about um, the rest of it. Okay. Any other last questions? I'm going to go ahead and stop recording then. All right.